Fine. So we're starting from Omer Abaye on Sadi Gimel Amud Beis. There's two Omer Abayes near the bottom there, but we're up 7 lines up from the bottom. So 8 lines up from the bottom on Sadi Gimel Amud Beis. And so we've been talking about, in general, we've been talking about the concept of shinui, that if someone steals something and then there's a change to the object of, various different categories of change to the object, you no longer have to physically give the object back. You are allowed to instead give the value of the object. You get to keep what you stole, but you have to pay for what you stole at the time of stealing. So Rabbi is going to tell us that not everybody agrees to this. That there are several opinions that disagree with this concept of shinui, of the change, that you get to give the object and pay the value instead. There's Amar Abaye. Abaye says, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehudah, Ubei Shammai, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Rabbi Yishmael, these 5 different opinions, Kulu Sfirlahu, they all hold shinui b'mkomo omed, a change in its place, literally a change stands in its place, meaning even though there's a change, the object's halachic status is unchanged and still owned by the original owner. The thief has not gained ownership of the object itself, such that you have to pay value instead, but rather it's still owned the owner and he has to give the object back as is. So we have to see proof of this statement. So one we've seen already, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehudah had Amram. We've already discussed that. That's a previous discussion here. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehudah said, according to Rabbi Shimon, he said that shinui in its place, shinui stays in its place. It says that even after you've made clothing into made the wool that you stole into clothing, you still have to you're still obligated in the midst of Reishi Segez and giving the first share to the Kohen. And you see that the fact that you changed it hasn't made a difference. It still combines with the other shearings you have to give to the Kohen. So that's number one. Now second one on the list is Beis Shammai, Mahi. Where do we see that Beis Shammai holds that shinui b'mkomo omed, that a change does not change the halacha status? You still have to give the object back. Tani says in the Brisa, Nasan lachitim besnana. Someone made an arrangement with a prostitute that he would pay her with wheat, vasan solas, and she turned it into flour. Zaysim gave her olives, vasan shemen, she made it into oil. And navim, he gave her grapes, vasan yayin, she turned it into yayin. And the rule is anything you've used as the fee for a prostitute cannot be used as a sacrifice. So Tanichada, one brisa says, Aser, these objects, these now changed objects, the flour, the olive oil, the wine, which is changed from the object that he gave her, is Aser, you cannot use it on the Mizbeach. But Tani Idach, and the other brisa says, Mutter, you're allowed to use them on the Mizbeach. Amar Rav Yosef says, Tani Gurim, and now we're right at the top of Tzadi Dalam and Aleph. Tani Gurim, Demi Aspork. We have Rabbi Gurian from Asborg explains with machlokes. Beis Shammai osrim. Beis Shammai says it's aser. Beis Hillel matir. Beis Hillel says it's mutter. So Beis Shammai says even though you've changed the object from what he gave her, you cannot use it. Beis Hillel says no, the object himself you can't use as a sacrifice. But now they've been changing something new, you are allowed to use it. My time in the Beis Shammai. What's the source of Beis Shammai who says that you cannot use them on the mizbeach even though they've been changed? The pasuk says the gam shneim. It says both of them. It says. Pasuk says about the hire of a prostitute and the sale price of a dog. Those two are both disgusting. So it says gam. Why not say also they are disgusting? Say not only these two, but anything that it say l'rabos shinuyim to add on any change made from them. The object itself has been changed. It's not what it was at the time of the payment. Still, it is usher. That's what the word gam comes to add in. Beis Hillel omrim. Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel says, the pasuk says, Haim, these things. Why say these things? Veloshanim, these things are not any change form of them. These things only as is. Now we have a problem. What the word gams also comes to add in yeah. The word also comes to add in something else. Every time it says the word also, it adds in something that's not included. But the word Haim, these are, comes to limit. So Beis Hillel is looking at the limitation, and Beis Shammai is looking at the ribui, the addition. So we have to find it out. Why does one focus on one and not the other? Beis Hillel, so we ask, so Beis Shammai, when it comes to Beis Shammai, Haksiv Haim, but it says Haim, these, typically to exclude something. So it says Ahumi boile, that word, when it says Haim to limit, that's coming, Haim v'lo valuseim, to say these things and not the children they've had. If you use a sheep as a hire for a prostitute, then even if as a child, Beis Shammai will agree that child is permitted. It's Tzadi Aleph about the 5th line down. So that's what they do with the word hey. And the base Hillel, Tarti, base Hillel, why do the base Hillel? General rule is one extra word, one thing you can learn from it. So if base Hillel, Beis Shammai is learning that hey means not the children. So how does base Hillel know that they can't use the children? It says Tarti Shemam, you hear both of them, these and not the children, these are not the changes. You hear both things from that some word. Hey below Shanem, hey below Valosam. These are not the changes, these are not the children. Now the other direction. Base Hillel, Nami, Aksiv Gam, it says Gam to add on. So what's the word Gam going to add on? Not only the basic thing it says, the hire a prostitute and the price of a dog, but what's also? When it says Gam the Base Hillel Kasha, we don't know. It's a challenge, it's a good question, but sometimes the Gemara says a good question, it's such a good question, it proves him wrong. It says, no, it's a good question. We don't know. We don't have an answer, but we're still sticking with it. We have not proven Base Hillel wrong. We just happen not to know the answer. We're confident there is an answer, but we don't know what it is. So that's number two. So now we prove Rabbi Shimon ben Yehudah and Beis Shammai hold that when you make a change to an object that you've stolen, you still have to give the object back. So we see that Rabbi Shimon ben Yehudah says that if you turn thread into a garment, still counts as Beis Shammai. Now you see Beis Shammai holds that even if you change the object, you still can't use it as a sacrifice. Now to number three, which is Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, Mahi. What's the statement of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov that says that he holds that if you steal an object and change it, you still have to give it back. Tani Bryson says Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, he stole a saw of wheat, that's a significant quantity. Tachana, he ground it. Lashna, he kneaded it. Va'afa, he baked it. Took challah from it. Ketan varach, how can you make a bracha on separating the challah here? Ein ze mevarach, this is not called making a bracha. You cannot bless Hashem and saying, thank you Hashem for giving this to me. You give me the opportunity to do this mitzvah, elamanai, you're angering Hashem. And this it says, the stealer who blesses, that angers Hashem. So you see from the fact that he says that it angers Hashem, you see that it's not yours, because if the fact that you changed it, you stole the flour, you stole the wheat and you ground it and did all these works, it's no longer the original object, it's yours now. So why is it angering Hashem? It's yours already. At some point you angered Hashem. The finished project you've already acquired, so you shouldn't anger Hashem. You see from here that you have not actually acquired it, still belongs to the owner. The fact you made a change in it has not changed its status, still belongs to the owner, and therefore it's called angry Hashem. We'll try to make a blessing on. Now we're up to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. What's the statement of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar that says that he holds that a change does not acquire it? Tanya Vaisa says, Klal zeh amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. This is the general principle that says that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Kol shevek shishbiach gazlin, any increase, any improvement that the thief has made, Yado ala Yona. The thief has the upper hand. Rutz, if you want, notel shavacho, he can keep the improvement. I mean, he gives the object back, but he takes the payment. He charges. I stole a $10 sheep, right? And now I've improved it. The hair has grown on it, or the wool has grown on it, or I did something to it. I clipped its fingernails. It's now worth more. Took care of it, so he can say, "Pay me for the improvement I made." So Rutz, if you want, notel shavacho. You can take the improvement. One thing is, take your object as is. Don't come to him with complaints that it's gone down in value. Just take it as is. You can either charge for the improvements he's made to it, or he can say, take it as is. So it's choice. My comma. So what is it trying to say? If it improves, why would you say take it as is? So it's basically, I answered that, but the more it hasn't gone. The answer is Amar of Shesha. Shesha says, this is what it's saying. If it went up in value, then notel shvacho increases, takes the increase. Kachash, it went down in value. You can say take it back. Either way, it shouldn't even become an omed because the change stands in its place. So you see from that, right? You see from the fact and say just take it as is. It went down in value. You don't charge the thief extra. In fact, you made a change to the object that decreases value. You can still give it back. We're asking if so, if you say the change in its place stands, I feel even if you've improved it, you have to give it back as is. Why is he taking a payment for the improvement he made? Even improved also. They said it's a decree for people who do tshuva, make it easy to do tshuva. If you spend all this time and energy improving the object he stole, he has to give it back and lose all that money. Besides the fact he's giving it back, he's never going to do tshuva, and therefore we say he can charge the value, the improved value of the object he made. That way he'll be more willing to give tshuva. All he's giving back is what he stole, and that he's more likely to do tshuva. Yeah.
No.
Okay, so that's 4 out of 5. The opinions that say that a change still stands, that it does not change the halakhic status, that you still have to give back the object itself. After number 5, Rabbi Yishmael Maihi. Where does you see from Rabbi Yishmael that he holds a change does not acquire for you, still have to give it back? Tanya says in the Brisa, mitzvahs payah, and the mitzvah payah being the corner of your field, that you leave something you don't harvest, and the poor people come. So the mitzvah is the hafish min hakama, to set aside from the standing grain. You don't harvest it first, you leave it standing. Lo hafish min hakama, what if you harvested already? Did you miss out? No, you still have not missed out. Mafish min umarim. You separate from the sheaves, you leave a pile of sheaves. So the poor people say, these are yours. I shouldn't have harvested, but I did. Here are the sheaves that I've harvested. Lo hafish min umarim, but if you already went past that stage, you already separated and you made a grain pile, still mafresh min akri, you separate from the grain pile, you take the actual wheat kernels, and you say give the wheat kernels to the poor people. Until you finished off, you smoothed off the pile. Now the rule is, once you smooth off the pile, that is when it's obligated in meisers and tithing. If you have smoothed off the pile and now it's obligated in meiser, so generally payah, the gifts to poor people, are not obligated in payah, in meiser they have to give it themselves. You now give them an object, they have to separate meiser, you're depriving them of a tenth of the quantity, even more than that. Because it's about 2% to a Kohen, 10% you give to a Levi, and 10% of what's left, then you either being Yerushalayim or you give to poor people. So that once you've obligated it, once you got to this point, it's obligated. If you give it to them now, they're going to lose a big chunk of it. So what do? It says meiser, you take off that 10% and all those different tithes, and v'nosin though, and give them the original quantity post tithing, so they're not losing out. In the name of Rabbi Yishmael, they said, Af mafrish min isa, even if you've gotten to the point where it's dough, still the fact that the dough already has, even though you've made a change to the object, until now, standing grain, you cut it, you separated the wheat from the stalk, the grain is unchanged. But now you've ground it, kneaded, and turned into dough. That's clearly a change. And the rabbis hold that you're exempt at that point. You've stolen it and you've done an avera. But there's nothing to do at this point. There's a general principle called mamon she'ein lo tovin. When there's money that there's no plaintiff in a court case, there's no court case. So there's no particular poor person that you owe the object to. So once you made a change in the object, you technically owe them the value of that object. Because the object has changed, there's no object that you have as instead of stolen property. Since there's no specific victim, there's no one who can sue you in Beis Din, so there's no way you can make restitution on that. So you end up being exempt. It's called the concept of mamon she'ein lo tovin. When there's money that you owe, but there's no plaintiff, then there's just no way to pay it. So the rabbis hold at this point, once you made it into dough, it's too late. There's no way you can pay this up. Yishmael says that you have not made a change, at least the way I'm understanding now, you have not made a change to the object. But even though you've made a change, it doesn't matter. The object is still considered obligated in payah, and you have to give it. So af mafish min isa v'nosin, though even you separate even from the dough and give to him. So now we've gone through 5 opinions that seem to all hold that even though the object has been changed, the halakha said is unchanged. So Amalei Rav Papa Abaye. Rav Papa says back to Abaye who said this. Ichbel, the word ichbel literally means folded, but it says bending over backwards is probably a good translation. Kol Hane Tanai, all these Tanaim have bent over backwards. Ashmin Beis Shammai go like Beis Shammai. We know we pass like Beis Hillel over Beis Shammai. So why is it that all these opinions are following Beis Shammai? That's not the halakha. Why do you have so many different opinions that seem to be explaining Beis Shammai? We know that's not the way we go. This is what I'm trying to say. I hold even Beis Hillel would agree to this. In fact, you have all these opinions to hold it. Even Beis Hillel must hold that a change does not count. Even though there's one brisa, the statement of Gurion Mi'aspark, who says that they do, but Rabbi has there's no machlokas. You have all these opinions that say it. That is, Beis Hillel agrees to that as well. Now, Amar Rava says, hold on, Abai, not so fast. Mimai. What makes you say that any of these opinions hold the change doesn't count? We're going to go back through, poke holes in either of them. So number 1, Dilma, Ad Kaim Lo Kamma Rabbi Shimon ben Yehudah. Maybe Rabbi Shimon ben Yehudah was talking about the case where you took the wool and you turn it into clothing, and he says you're still obligated in the mitzvah of Reishi Zegez. Reishi Zegez, not clothing, so you've dyed it. You're still obligated in the mitzvah of Reishi Zegez. You're still obligated to give the shearings to the Kohen. He only said, Dilma Lo Kamma Rabbi Yehudah Ella Hasam, Ella. Maybe he's only said these stuff together, but seva, when you use dye, there's a strong soap that removes dye, and it could be, and it's called a shinui so it's a change that can be restored to its original position. And he holds that a change that is reversible is not considered a change, and that's why he holds that you still are obligated in the midst of Reishi together given to a Kohen even after you covered it. And maybe Beis Shammai says that you've ground the wheat and turned the flour and the wine to oil, the olives into oil and the grapes into wine. El Gvoa, that maybe Beishami only said that it's prohibited coming Beishami Hasam El Gvoa except to a Shem. Shudimot is disgusting since you've given to a prostitute or traded for a dog. Only in that case that the change is still usher, but normally a change you would acquire it. By Kanlo come Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, and maybe Rabbi Yossi doesn't say Hasam over there. Ella, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov was talking about stealing the wheat and grinding during the bread. It says it angers Hashem. That Ella in bracha, that's to make a blessing. Really, you did acquire it, but the fact that you acquire it doesn't matter because it still angers Hashem because it's stolen property. It's a mitzvah that's coming to the hand of Avera. In fact, I did the wrong thing. Now I'm trying to say, but I'm doing a mitzvah. Hashem doesn't want a mitzvah like that. Don't sin and then try to do a mitzvah. You're stealing tefillin. When it's stolen tefillin, the veer of stealing is so much worse than wearing tefillin. So even though, yes, now you've done a change and you've acquired it, but it doesn't matter. It still angers Hashem. So you don't see anything about the fact that the change makes it acquired for him. And number 4, Rabbi Shimon Elazar talked about weakening the animal. It says you just say it's yours. Hasam ella ba'akasha tahara. Maybe he's talking about a weakening that comes back. And since the weakening will come back, you haven't really made a change, and therefore you can just give it back to the owner. And it have not acquired it. And number 5, Adkan Lokam Rabbi Yishmael Hasam Elin Peah. Rabbi Yishmael said Peah you can even give when you turn it into dough, you give it. Maybe that's Mishum Deksiv Tazov Yisrael. It says an extra time. It says you should leave it twice. It says that word twice. Say that you should, even above and beyond normal gifts, you have to leave the Peah behind and give it to a Kohen. But give it to a poor person, I mean. And maybe you'll say that we should learn from there that just like when it comes to the mitzvah Peah, that even though you've changed it, it says leave it anyway. Maybe you should learn from there the rest of the Torah. The gifts to a poor person are different. We find that in general, we're more particular about giving gifts to a poor person than for other things, and therefore, so to here you give it here, and it's a unique halacha in giving gifts to the poor person that you have to, even though you've changed it, you still have to give it to them. Rabbi Yonasan, like we had a question of Yonasan that illustrates this point as well. Rabbi Yonasan asked, my time of Rabbi Yishmael, what's the logic of Rabbi Yishmael? Is it Mishum Shinu and Kollel, like we wanted to say originally, that he holds that making a change you not acquire? Or Dilma, or maybe Ba'alma in general and the rest of the Torah, he holds that making a change you do acquire it, and that's yours, you don't have to give it back, you just pay the value. The Hach, and here in our case, because it says leave it behind an extra time, tell you that you have to give it even though you made a change here, but in general you wouldn't. And if you would say time of Rabbi Yishmael, the reason of Rabbi Yishmael mishum dekasava shinui enokona, that if the reason is because the change doesn't acquire for you like we wanted to say originally, the when the Torah writes is extra time, leave it behind. What's the point of that? What do we learn from there? Pursue and another question, the rabbinic when the rabbis who argue Tazav Yisera de Kasav Rachman Lamali. Why do the rabbis? Why does it have to say leave it behind an extra time? They hold it even here when the object didn't change. You don't have to give it as payal. You've acquired it. So why does it have to say leave it behind? It can't apply in this case. What does it apply to? And the answer is mi boile. They need it. Kitana, it says in the Brisa, hamaf your karma. If someone says, you know what, I'm not harvesting my vineyard. I'm giving the whole thing to whoever wants to have it up for grabs. My entire vineyard is up for grabs. He says that. And it gets up early in the morning. Uvatsu, and he harvested himself, is up for grabs. And now it's itself. Now there's a general rule that anything that the poor people, the Levim had a shot at, is exempt from tithing. So this vineyard was hefker for a moment. It was up for grabs for some time. Therefore, the fact that the Levim could have come and taken it themselves, you're no longer operating tithes. So chayiv, but nevertheless, you're chayiv b'pered v'olos v'shikka. You're obligated in these 4 mitzvahs. Pered is if you drop some grapes when harvesting. Olos are the misshapen grape clusters. Shikkas, if you forget something. Peah is leaving the corner of the field behind. All those 4 mitzvahs you're obligated in. Nevertheless, even though that you made hefker, however, patra minamais are exempt from tithing, because since the Levim had a shot at it, it's permanently exempt from tithing. But nevertheless, you still have to give all these other gifts. Amar Rabbi Yehudah, and why is that? That's because it says the word tazel there. It says leave it behind extra. Not only do you have to leave it, but leave it behind extra. Even in this particular case, where the Levim had a shot at it, that does not exempt you from payah. It does exempt you from meiser. Does not exempt you from payah and all these other gifts to the poor people. and therefore you still are obligated on them. So that's what the extra time it says tazo for it, and therefore that's how we explain the rabbis. That's how you could explain Rabbi Shmuel as saying that change does not make a difference. But you can also say that Rabbi Yishmael used that change, that the word tazo, to say only here the change doesn't matter, but in general it does. So now we say Omar Rabbi Yehudah, Omar Shmuel. We have 4 lines before it gets wide. At the bottom it says Halacha Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Halacha is like Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said that if the thief makes a change to the object, he gets paid for it. If it goes down in value, you can take it back. Now we ask, so me Amar Shmuel Hachi, did Shmuel really say that? Amar Shmuel, where Shmuel said elsewhere, Ein Shaman Lo Laganav Lo Lagazlan Evan Zakin. You don't make an evaluation for a thief or there are 2 kinds of thief. I think you've had it by now a couple times. The Ganav is a thief in secret. Gazlan is a robber in public. So neither one of them gets evaluated. When they give the object, you just give it back. You don't give them any benefit. You don't evaluate the improvements to it. El Nizakin, except for damages, when you damage an object when it goes up in value, then you do use that to figure out how much you have to pay.
It goes up in value.
Right. If you've stolen something, right, or you damage something, it goes up in value. So if you damage it and it goes up in value, then you get a share of that increase. You don't have to pay the full value went down because it's now gone up.
The
thief does not.
Oh,
Shmuel says the thief it does not. But here we just said Shmuel holds like Rabbi Shimon Elazar said the thief does give the increase. It's a contradiction in Shmuel. There's Bishlomo Rav. This is according to Rava that said that we can resolve the contradiction. The Amar who said Kika Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Shimon ben Elazar was talking about Hasan B'Kash Dahadar, weakening the animal that will return, not a permanent change. Lo Kasha then is not a contradiction. When Rabbi Shimon Elazar says that the thief gets the increase in value, the Shin Kama Omed, when it says because the change stands in its place, that's talking about a change that is reversible. That Rabbi Shimon Elazar says that you get paid in that's talking about a reversible change. That's not a permanent change. And therefore you do get paid. Kiyama Shmuel, when Shmuel says Hasam Ein Shaman Laganav Lagazi, you don't evaluate for them. The Zakin only for damages. That's Bacharasha de Lohadar. That's when there's a change, when a weakening that doesn't return. So in the case of the weakening does return, I said it backwards. In case when the weakening does return, when you weaken the animal, but it'll go back. But right now it's diminished in value. That's what Rabbi Shimon Elazar says. You can just say, take it as is. I'm not paying you for the damage. The weakening is permanent. That's where Shmuel says you don't evaluate for the thief. He has to pay back the original value as is. So the fact that it's gone down in value, too bad for the thief. You have to pay back the original value. So it's not a contradiction. According to Rava, that's the way Rava explained to Shimon Elazar. Then Shmuel is not contradictory. If it's permanent change, then then it's considered a change, and you pay back the value. Temporary change, that's where you can say take it as is. Al-Abai, we're going to Abaye, who explained that Rabbi Shimon Elazar says that a change doesn't count. Amar ki ka'amar Rabbi Shimon Elazar b'chasha lo hadar. Rabbi Shimon Elazar is talking about even a change that will not. It's talking about a change that will not come back. Still, he says you can say take it as is. The change doesn't matter. Amar Michael, how can you explain Abaye? Right? How can you explain the contradiction in Shmuel according to Abaye? Abaye masni haki. Abaye says no. You got the statement wrong. Amar, what he said Amar Rabbi Yehudah Amar Shmuel Amru. They said halach Rabbi Shimon Elazar. There are those that say like Rabbi Shimon Elazar that the change doesn't matter. But Shmuel himself doesn't hold that. Just saying there are those that want to say like Rabbi Shimon Elazar that change does not matter, but he himself does not hold like that. Okay. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Chia bar Abba says name Rabbi Yochanan. Davar Torah according to Torah law, if an object that is stolen has been changed, Choseres Beineh is returned as is. You do not get to keep it, even though you've changed it, not to keep it. Shneimah, the pasuk says, return the object you have stolen, no matter what. And if you're talking about our Mishnah, it says that you get to keep it. That's because of the kind for the people who did tshuva. They stole something, have it now. They don't want to have to give it back. We say, you know what? You get to keep it rabbinically. If you may change the object, you get to keep it because we want you to do tshuva. We encourage you to repent and make restitution, so let you keep it as long as you pay back the value. That's good enough. Now I'm going to ask you, me Amar Rabbi Yochanan Haki, did Rabbi Yochanan really say that? Amar Rabbi Yochanan said elsewhere, halacha is tam mishnah. The halacha is always like a mishnah that's not attributed. Mishnah said plain without any attribution. Why is it said plain? Because that is the Baal Halacha. So that's a general rule in the name that Rabbi Yochanan says. But Tana, there's a plain Mishnah that says, Lo lo pater. We had this is a Mishnah we had earlier about Rishi Segez, that if you shear the sheep and you have not had a chance to give it to Kohen before you dyed it already, you're now exempt from giving it to the Kohen. So you see that even though you've made a change, it does matter. So Amalei Humi Rabbanan, one of the rabbis, Rabbi Yaakov Sheman, Rabbi Yaakov is his name. Rabbi Yochanan. I can explain the two statements of Rabbi Yochanan, or this particular statement of Yochanan is not contradictory. Really, you're right. If you steal something, the change does count. So Rabbi Yochanan who said the change does not matter. But the Tamek Yon Shikazal ate in Meshupim, you stole wood that was already shaped, already plain and sanded and shaped. As a camel made those into vessels, you just nail them together. To have a shinui chozeh b'yasa, that's the change can return. So even though you've changed the object, you took wood and now it's made into a vessel. Since it's already been shaped, that change you just take the nails out and it returns back to its original state. That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. On Torah level, you would have to give back the wood. Rabbinically, you get to keep the vessel you made and just pay the value because we want to encourage people to do tshuva. Okay, now we have another decree that was made to encourage people to do tshuva. It says, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Hagazlanim, thieves, umalve ribis, people have lent on with interest, shekziran, and they try to return the object that they have stolen or the money they gained by interest. A mekablan mehem, we do not take the money back. But mekabel mehem, and someone who does take the money back, the rabbis are not pleased with him. Literally, the spirit of the rabbis does not rest on him. It means they're not happy with him for doing it. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, this mission was taught at the time of Rabbi Yehudah Nasi. Now, Rabbi Tosfos actually learns that this means this halacha only applies in the time of Rabbi Yehudah Nasi. A lot of other Gemaras that seem to say you do take the return object back. And they said, no, this object was only made, particularly, this decree was made only particularly for the generation of Rabbi Yehudah Nasi. So see, because there were too many people who were stealing and not repenting and not doing tshuva. So he made a short-term ruling that you don't have to give it back in order to encourage people to at least try to do tshuva and change their ways. Tani, it says in the Brisa, there's a story about one person. Because he was a thief, been stealing for a while, as we'll see, and he wanted to do tshuva. Amalei Ishto, his wife said, Reka, you empty-head person. You're going to tshuva, return everything you've stolen. Even your belt does not belong to you. You've stolen everything. You're going to be totally broken in the poorhouse. How can you do tshuva and take everything back? But Nimna, and he refused. He held himself back. Below us, the tshuva did not do tshuva. But Osasha, that time, Amru, they said, Gazlanim, the thieves, and Malve Ribis, people who lend with interest, Shekzira, and they return to Ein Makalayim. We do not take it back from them. Kalmahan, and someone who does take it back, Ein Rocham Nochim, and the spirit of the rabbi is not rest on them and not pleased with that. Meisva, we have a challenge to that. It says the case. Their father left behind, passed away, and left behind money that is interest. Even though they know that money is interest money, they don't have to return it. Or more clearly it says, Inu, this hates as they, the children, who delo, they're the ones who don't have to return. You have to say the children don't have to return. Why say the children don't have to return? This implies a VM that the father would have been obligated to return it. But you see, but Yehudah Nasi said that you don't have to return it, and here we're saying the father does have to return. So Gemara says no, but Dinu, the logic would indicate the VM Nami really we could have said the father doesn't have to return either. So then why are we talking about the children? That which we taught about them. They said the children have to return it. Because we're talking about the second half of it. Avi and par of a talis, follow up behind a cow and a talis. A specific object, you look and say that is stolen property. It's embarrassing. In that case, because the kibbut avein, because they honor their father, they're obligated to return the object as is. It's embarrassing the children have the specific stolen property or ribis property, property that was taken as interest. The specific object you have to give back, but cash you would not have to give back. The reason I have to give back is we came in the covenant of because of honor to the father. So since at the end part we say the children don't even hear the children have to give back, let's say the first half, Tani Reisha taught the first half, not we do also about them that they do not have to give back. Really, if the father were off, he also wouldn't have to give it back. They covenant of Chayav. We'll ask the question: is the honor of the father have to give back? Akrei Kam, we should apply here the pasuk. Nasiv Amacha Lo Saor. Don't curse a prince of your nation. What does it mean of your nation? But also when he's acting like someone who belongs to your nation, if someone is a righteous person, that's when you have to honor them. But if father is lending it with interest, he's a wicked person. You don't have to honor him. You're not obligated to honor him. So why shouldn't you keep it? Why should you return it? It's honor because it's embarrassing. It's not obligated to honor him. It's like Rav Pinchas says, B'sha'as tshuva. We're talking about a case where the father did tshuva, and that's why you're obligated to honor him. He's no longer a wicked person. He is acting like the nation, and therefore you have to return it. And we're asked, Yas tshuva, if he repented, my boy gabe, why does he still have it? Or la'adure, he should return it. The answer is, no, he didn't get a chance to return before he passed away. Father wanted to return it. He said, I did tshuva on his death, and said, well, it's such a mistake. I've lived my life wrong, and I have to give it back, but he didn't give a chance. He passed away. The children, then if it's a specific object, the children have to give it back. This is embarrassing. But if it's cash, you don't have to give back, like Rabbi Yehudah Leib.
If it's a what?
If a specific object, if a specific object he took, that is to give back. That's embarrassing that the children have as object the father stole. But if it's just cash, then the children don't have to give it back. It's not as embarrassing to the father. Okay, Tashma. Come you see a brace like Gazlanim and Mavi Ribis. You have thieves and you have people who lend with interest. They have collected Magazira and they have to return it. You know, and says, hold on, that makes no sense. Thieves collect. Gazlanim Maishigavu Ika. What do you mean thief who collects? Where is there ever a case of thief who collects? E gazel. If he stole, he stole. If he low gazel, if he didn't steal, low gazel, he didn't steal. We have his person say, you know what? I tried to steal it, but I didn't get a chance yet. You owe me that money. You know, I was in your house. I could have stolen. I didn't. You owe it to me now. Just hand it over. There's no such thing. Like, thieves don't collect. So I mean, thieves and lenders ribbis who even though they collected, what do I mean collecting by a thief?
No, we just went over it. If you increase the value of it.
That's not called collecting. I wouldn't say collecting. Collected payment. Or if you collect, so if collecting payment, that means it's his.
Yeah.
That's not called stealing. We're saying even though he stole, when I say he has to, right, then he has to give it back. So in that case, he's got payment. He's not giving that back. So what does it mean a thief who collected? El Ema raise it this way, because Lanim, the thieves who might need which kind of thief? Mave Ribios, people who lend with interest, that kind of thief. So we're not taking two cases, we're taking one case. And talking only about something who lends with interest. Av Vishigav, we never collected. Magazine stuff to give it back, it's still called stolen property, even though the person gave it voluntarily. You know, you charge interest, the person says, yeah, here, I owe you this money, I owe you the interest. So even though they gave it willingly, still you have to give it back. So Rabbi Yehudah said, no. Amri said, no, Magzir, and they return it, but you don't take from them. They're obligated to give it to you, and you're supposed to say, no, thank you. El Allah Magzir, so what's the point of them trying to give it back if you're not going to take it anyway? Say Shemayim, because they have a mitzvah to give it back. So Torah level, they obligate to give it back. So you have to give it back to you. And then you can say, no, thanks, I'm not taking it that way. When they know you're not going to take it, then they're more likely to do tshuva. So if they know you're going to take it, they're never going to even try to give it back. Say they gave it back to you, they went and gave it, that's a tshuva. They're going to stop doing it for now. Even this, they physically gave back to you, but you didn't take it, then you both went. That's why they have to give it back. Okay, I'm going to have a very similar thing now. Tashma, it says, Roim, you have shepherds, and the shepherds are known to find the nearest pasture graze, even if it's someone else's property. The Kabayim and the collectors, this usually means tax collectors. So here it means a collector for the king, I think, collector for customs collectors, yeah. Customs collectors, and they sometimes charge too much. But Mochas and regular tax collectors, Shuvas and Kasha, it's very hard for them to repent. They steal from a lot of people, and how are they supposed to know who they stole from? The Magazir and the Makir, they give back to anyone they recognize that they stole from, they should give back to them. But if they don't recognize it, then how are they supposed to give it back? It's very hard for them to do proper tshuva. So Amr, they said Magazir, they return it, but you don't take it back. Anyone they recognize, you have to physically give it back. That way they can get the atonement for those, but they won't take it. You don't take it. And why should they return it? Let's say Shemayim to fulfill the work of heaven. What makes it so hard to do tshuva? They have so much money they stole, they just give it back. They're not going to take it anyway. Why is it so hard? And furthermore, aim a save at the end of it. For the people that you don't recognize, spend the money on public works. At least the people you stole from get some kind of benefit from it. So you can't know exactly who to give it back to. spend the money in public works, so they'll get some kind of benefit from it. You see, you're actually giving it back. V'amar Rav Chisda, what's the kind of? Rav Chisda says, what kind of public works? Boros Teichin Amaros, you make wells, cisterns, caves. You make drinking fountains, basically. Build drinking fountains. So how do we explain it? See, you do have to give them the money back. So Ella lo kasha, it's not a challenge. Kan here, kodem tigan. This price that says give you back, that's before the decree of Rabbi Yehudah Nasi. Kan la'achid tigan. This the second part of Rabbi Yehudah Nasi says give it back. You don't give it back, you don't accept it. That's after the decree. Bahashta now to Amar of Nachman. Nachman says b'she'eng zel kayemis. That's when the object does not still exist. Rabbi Yehudah Nasi is only talking about when the object exists. When the object still exists as is, it was stolen. That's when then you have to give it back. Once you've changed it, you don't have to give cash. That makes it too much harder. We still have stolen property, just give the stolen property back. But when you've stolen it, changed it, you spent it, you've done it, all sorts of things with it, that's what you said, we don't want to give it back because who knows how much it's going to be. As long as you still have the object, it's never going to bankrupt you because you just give it back, you have everything else. But when you change it to cash, it's not there anymore, and you might have spent the money, that's when you don't have to give it back. So now, once you said that, if you tema, you could even say kind of both statements are after the decree. Lo kasha is not a contradiction. Kan bezela kayamis. One is talking about whether the object is still there. That's when Yehudah Nasi said that's when it says you have to give it back. Kan b'she'eng bezela kayamis. But when Yehudah Nasi says you don't give it back, that's when the object does not exist as is. It says v'ha'avne, but its belt is bezela kayamis. That's when the stolen property is still there. It says you're not even going to get to wear your belt. Your belt's stolen. That's what the woman said to her husband. That's when it's still there. No, my avne, what do you mean by belt? To may avne, meaning you have to sell your belt to pay back all the money you stole. It's talking about when he sold the property, he's going to say, you have to pay everything. You even have to sell your belt. You're not going to have a belt. You're going to pay everything back. And one asks, well, any place where the stolen property still is around, lo avad rabbanan tikanta, they didn't make a decree, they don't have to give it back. Marish the gzela kayemesi. You have a beam that's considered stolen, that is stolen property. The time it says in the Mishnah, Gittin, and testified. The background of this is there's a list of cases that were not known that people came to base and testified about the halacha. So they testified is not here in the Gemara, but that's the background here. Marish Gazal about a stolen beam, Shabana Babira, that he built into his house. Shiyutodamav, that the victim takes the cash instead, he gets to keep it. Even though the beam is completely unchanged, you just stuck some nails in to build your whole house around it. In order to give it back, you have to demolish your whole house, and no one's going to want to do tshuva for that. So it says pay cash instead, because of the decree for the sake of the people who repented. So you see that object still exists, and you only have to pay cash. And it's a shani hasam over there, it's different. Since you're going to have to ruin your whole house, your whole palace, the rabbis made it like it doesn't exist anymore. It's like it's no longer stolen property. It's like it's been changed, even though it has not been changed. The tree like it's been changed, so you don't have to give it back. Rashi points out, but you have to pay cash. So it's not entirely like it's been changed. Since the object physically still exists, you don't have to look from paying for it. But they said because we don't want you to do tshuva, you don't have to take your house apart. Then we'll say pay cash instead. So now we have three levels. If the object still exists and is accessible, you just have to give it back. Object still exists, but it's not. But it would cause you significant harm to give it back. Then you pay cash. The object has been changed, so that you acquired it and it's not around anymore. Then you don't even have to pay cash. You're supposed to pay it, but they're supposed to not take it. I want to encourage you to tshuva. And it's 5 minutes till shachris, and we did a little over a daf. So I think we'll stop here. Have a good day.
That's God.
Good after. All right.
Okay, so
That should go off.
Rabbi Yomi should almost certainly be out still tomorrow. Wednesday he might be back. So I think I'll still be with you tomorrow unless I hear otherwise. Okay, hatzlach.